Hi there, this is Dennis Velco with OutBüro. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of OutBüro Voices, where we have engaging and insightful conversations with LGBTQ professionals, entrepreneurs, and community leaders. I think today's episode is going to be right on spot for all you entrepreneurs out there, as we have Wendy Weiss of she has been coined the queen of cold calling. And if you're in business, you know what that feels like. So welcome to the show, Wendy.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, well, whenever we talk, your focus on cold calling just hit home. I'm doing that myself and trying to create connections and interest with companies to become early adopters and subscribers of OutBüro at outbureau.com. So it really hit home, and I just having also have had a consulting practice in the past, calling into Fortune 100 and 500 level businesses, and have even owned some small businesses in my past. I just felt that your message and what you do is so important for entrepreneurs. So give us a little bit of history about what got you to the point of being coined the queen of cold calling, and we'll transition right into kind of the meat of the day.
Certainly. I was never, ever supposed to be the queen of cold calling. I was actually supposed to be a ballerina. I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I moved to New York City, where I still live and work. I moved here when I was 17 to dance. I studied at the Joffrey Ballet School. And then, like every artist in New York City, eventually I needed a day job, and I got really sick of waiting on tables. And then I got a job with a telemarketing agency. They did business to business development. And it turned out I was really good at it, which was a complete surprise because ballet dancers don't talk. We dance, we don't talk. So I did that day job for a while. And then I started my own business where I had clients that I would represent, and I did business development for them. And it was actually one of those first clients that dubbed me the queen of cold calling because I found so many opportunities for him. And then from there, I segued into the business that I have today. And the business that I have today, we are a sales training consultancy, and we work with business owners, entrepreneurs, people that need to develop new business. And it's so gratifying to see sometimes business owners that they don't have a pipeline of opportunities. They're not having the success that they envision. And they learn this very foundational skill, and everything changes. It is so transformational. So I'm really, it's very moving to be able to do what I do and help business owners and entrepreneurs grow their businesses, especially today when you can't just walk into a place of business or go to a lot of networking events as perhaps you were doing a year ago.
Right. And what a feeling, like you said, of gratification you must have to be able to provide that training and then see helping that business owner realize the results. Having that direct impact and seeing those results is always a sense of satisfaction, and knowing that you have helped change their life, change their financial perspective, and so forth. And it's one of the reasons why this was very interesting to me to have you on the show is, as entrepreneurs, we have to wear so many hats, especially as a startup. Maybe there's only 1, 2, or 3 people in the organization. And no one, and I always have this thread in my dialogue. I use the example of Susie the dentist. And when Susie graduated from dentist cosmetic surgery school and so forth, she didn't receive the education to become a CPA, an attorney, a marketing guru with social media and so forth. and also wasn't taught the sales. But they have to, every entrepreneur has to have some level of sales, because if there are no sales, there is no business, right?
Exactly. And I want to just piggyback on what you're saying, because there is this very insidious myth out there. So many business owners will say to me, oh, well, Wendy, I'm not a salesperson. And, there's this myth of the born salesperson, that somehow there are these people out there that are just born knowing what to do and born knowing what to say. That is a myth. And you might be born with a lot of talent. For example, someone might be born with a lot of talent to dance, but if they don't go to ballet class, they're not dancing in a ballet company. And you might be born with a lot of athletic talent, but if you don't practice your sport and work with a coach, you're not going to the Olympics.
Absolutely.
And, I was so lucky, because early in my career, I got that day job. I knew nothing about business. I was a dancer. They taught me this skill. They coached me. They gave me feedback. They held my hand. They gave me a little push when I needed it. Learning this skill enabled me to build a business. And so what I want to say to everyone that's listening in or watching, if you are struggling, it's not your fault. People say a lot of stupid things about this topic. But the bottom line is, it is a skill. You can learn it. You can improve on it. And in all the years I've been doing this and working with my clients, I see them learn and implement new skills, and everything changes.
Awesome. Awesome. And, your analogies, really help drive home, um, the topic at hand. You're absolutely right. Everything must be learned. And especially as small business owners, if you don't have the funds to hire professional, sales reps and so forth, you have to do everything yourself. And especially when you're starting off, you typically have to do everything yourself, because if you've not yet generated income to afford to hire that CPA, guess what? You're doing your own accounting. And if you don't have the funds to, hire that social media marketer or so forth, you're using Canva or whatever to create your images, and you're doing the postings. So, but it's really about honing your skills. And even in social media, as the example, you can learn and become relatively good. But if you aren't out there constantly learning on the different areas of business practices, including sales and cold calling, you're just going to stay stuck where you are. And, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. I really firmly believe in coaching, getting people when you can. And if you can't afford to go out and hire a life coach and a wellness coach and a sales coach or something, there's books. And you also have books out, if I'm not mistaken.
That is true.
So tell us a little bit about your books, and we'll make sure that we have links to those in the show notes as well.
Absolutely. I believe we've sent you a link to the Business Owner's Guide to Setting More Qualified Appointments When Their Prospects Are All Completely Freaking Out. And that I wrote that over the summer, and it's 12 steps, easy to implement, 12 steps that you can use starting today. Pick one, start with it. 12 steps that you can implement to increase sales right now. So that's the Business Owner's Guide to Setting More Qualified Appointments When Their Prospects Are All Completely Freaking Out.
I love the title.
Thank you. And then the other book is The Sales Winner's Handbook. And the subtitle for this book is Essential Scripts and Strategies to Skyrocket Sales Performance. One of the questions that I am asked all the time, people always ask me, well, Wendy, what do I say? I'm speaking with a prospect. They just said whatever they said. What should I say? Or I'm talking to a gatekeeper, what should I say? Or the prospect says they're working with someone, what should I say? And so I wrote the Sales Winner's Handbook to answer those questions. It is a what to say in all the different kinds of situations that might come up. And it's written to be, you just go to the page that has your particular question, and there is a script there that you can use and make your own to answer your what do I say in this situation question.
Awesome. Awesome. So, for all of our audience out there, we're going to have show notes down below where you're able to directly link in and start your journey by reading and using the tools that Wendy has taken all her years of experience and compiled into those. And so once someone maybe does that and they realize that maybe they're just not getting it, or maybe there's more. You also offer some consulting and coaching. So give us some examples about why, and maybe even when it's a good time to reach out to you for that additional coaching.
Well, our core program is called 3X Appointments. And we call it 3X because when people go through this program, if they are already doing any kind of business development, typically their numbers triple. And what I mean by that is triple the number of qualified appointments, heavy emphasis on the word qualified. And then down the line, depending on how long the sales cycle is, there's generally an increase, a corresponding increase in revenue. And here's the thing that I said earlier, that this is a skill. It is not intuitive. And just in the same way, you know, my first career, I was a ballet dancer. If I went and I read a book on ballet, that would not make me a ballet dancer. I have to go to class. I have to work with my teacher. It takes about 10 years to train a ballet dancer. It will not take you 10 years to learn this. We do our program in 6 months, but it is, you need the coaching, you need the support, you need that objective outsider, because when you are the business owner, you're in it. You're too close to it. And so you need that objective eye, that objective ear to help you get to where you want to go. And one of the things that I always say to my business owners, my solopreneur business owners, because sometimes they'll come to me and they'll say, Wendy, I want to hire a salesperson. And I'll say, that's great. What do you have in place for them? And the answer is usually nothing. Do you know how much it costs to hire a salesperson? There are recruiting costs, not just the ad, but somebody's got to look at resumes. Somebody's got to interview people. Then the salesperson has to be trained. There's all sorts of, if you're going to pay them a salary, if there are benefits, they need some kind of office supplies. You probably have to get them a computer. I read an article last week that said it costs in the neighborhood of $300,000 to hire a salesperson.
Wow.
So that's a lot of money. If you're going to spend, even if you're going to spend $100,000 to hire someone, you really want to have stuff in place to make sure that they're successful. So what we do in the 3X Appointments program is we teach a very step-by-step system that we teach to the business owner. We teach them that skill. They learn the system. We help them benchmark the entire process. Once you've done that, if you have a step-by-step benchmarked system, you can then plug somebody else into it.
Awesome. And it would
you,
probably be advisable if to then possibly even bring that salesperson into your training, so that they're also getting that coaching, which it would be also not only beneficial to the business owner, but would be a great benefit to that salesperson to help them not only in their career at that business, but even future work. Because this is a life skill. It's a business life skill.
Absolutely. And when you get it, it is so transformational. And the people that do our program, the very last day, I always ask them, well, what's changed for you over the last 6 months? And all of them say some version of, oh yeah, now I just call up the prospect and I get them on the phone and I say what I have to say, and they book a meeting, they book an appointment. And they kind of say it like that. They're very blasé about the whole thing. Because when you get it right, you reach out to that person you want to talk to, you say what you have to say, and a lot of the times they just open up their calendar. They go, okay, they open up their calendars and book an appointment. And let me clarify my definition of the word appointment, because people mean different things by it. And I know these days, maybe you were used to getting in your car and going to see people, and you're not doing that today. Maybe you're doing a Zoom call instead. The word appointment simply means that a prospect agrees to have an in-depth conversation with you. Not, yeah, call me in 3 weeks, we'll talk then. But they actually say, yes, I want to hear what you have to say, and they schedule a time to talk about it. That's my definition of the word appointment. Where it happens, maybe it's a Zoom call, maybe it's on the phone, maybe one day again you'll be getting in your car and going to see people, or they're coming to you. But they agree, you need the agreement that they want to hear what you have to say. That's what we're going for.
Well, and sales is a numbers game, right? So the more qualified appointments that you set, the more opportunity that those appointments will close. And so talk about maybe a little bit of, your definition again of that qualified appointment, because, no one wants to waste their time on appointments and calls that you kind of already going into it, you don't have a feel that that's going to lead anywhere. And I'm used to selling into very large corporations. So whenever I set an appointment with someone, I want the highest level person possible. Even if they aren't the end all, like my inroads for OutBüro.com is either marketing or HR, with a heavy emphasis on HR, global diversity and inclusion directors, HR directors, global talent acquisition directors, or even the employee resource group for the LGBT community within that employer, maybe even their highest person who's in charge of that, because that person will become a champion and has inroads into the HR department. So those are my targets. And so, talking to, no offense to anyone out there, but if I'm just talking to your average recruiter who's, calling on, people to come to work for them, but but they're not at that other level, that person could become a champion, but now I have to go through so many ladders of trying to get buy-in that is frankly a bit of a waste of a time for me, because if I'm not going for as high as possible, everyone else is great conversations, and it's good to get their affirmations that they love what I'm doing, but it's really kind of a waste of time. And so anyway, so maybe talk to us a little bit about, how your strategy on coaching people to reach those decision makers, or to reach that qualified person.
Absolutely. And I do have to agree with what you just said. You always want to target the highest level person that you think is the decision maker. Because if you go high and you've gone too high, they can tell you who to talk to, which is a much easier entree. And a lot of people are afraid of doing that. But actually, the higher you go, the nicer the people are. So that's something that's interesting but true. What we teach is you actually want to micro target, and we always start with what's the target, and we want to define it very narrowly. So that might be by the size of the company, either revenue or employee count. For example, sometimes a client will say to me, oh yeah, we'll work with any business that has 5,000 to 10,000 employees. Well, that a company that has 5 employees has completely different issues than a company that has 10,000 employees. So you gotta narrow it down. You'd have to identify what is the title of the person that would make the decision, because that's the person you're trying to reach. And so you want to micro target, and because when you do that, and these need to be objective criteria, not companies that really understand the value that we bring to the table. That's subjective. We all want that. We all want that.
I'm sorry, I just had to chuckle at that because, that is just so broad. It's meaningless.
Yeah. Well, I would love to be the list broker for that list, but that's another conversation. So they've got to be objective criteria. And once you have, I call this the ideal prospect profile. Once you have those objective criteria, it makes it easier to find them. It makes it so much easier to create the messaging, the introduction, the elevator speech that gets their attention, or the voicemail that gets them to return a phone call. It makes it more likely to close. I can tell you a very interesting story about that in just a moment. And you don't waste your time.
And frankly, with that, you also don't waste other people's time in the company. Because if you start off low and work your way up the ladder, now you have just wasted how many hours talking to, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people, all trying to get their buy-in so that they internally take it up the ladder. And so I've had an interesting situation recently where someone was working from the bottom up due to a personal relationship, but it's like, well, wait a minute. I'm connected to the HR director on LinkedIn. That's the person that I would want to go after. And then it was like, oh, well, we don't want to ruffle the feathers of these people. Let them take it up internally. And I'm like, on one side of me, it's like, okay, we'll give that a time, but I time boxed it. Is going to go this much time. After that much time, I'm reaching out to the HR director. That person accepted a connection with me. She knows what my profile is all about. So, if I happen to ruffle the ego of a lower level person temporarily, I kind of have to weigh that. Is that really going to impact me? And at the end of the day, if the company signs on, they're going to be happy. So that's one of those situations where it's, I think your coaching is very valuable. I want that, information, but then as I bring on people to OutBüro, I would want them to have that same kind of training as well. So just affirmations and applause for what you're doing. So if the story hasn't escaped your mind while I just dialogued for a moment, if you could share that with us.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, I have 2 stories. The first story is I got an email a couple of weeks ago from someone. She was very upset because she'd been prospecting and she reached out to a prospect, and apparently he was very rude to her. And so she sent me this email and she told me how upset she was, and there was no reason for him to be that rude, and she was just doing her job and blah, blah, blah. At the end of the email, she says, and he wouldn't even have been a very big customer. So I emailed her back. I said, why were you reaching out to him in the first place? I mean, let's think about this. If you're reaching out to somebody that you already know would not be a very big customer, they do not need whatever it is you're selling. So, there's only so many hours in the day. Spend your time reaching out to people that actually need whatever it is you do, and need a lot of it. And the other story I wanted to share, this is because this issue about creating the messaging, it is so vital. This is just like real life. In real life, people respond to what you say to them. When you are prospecting, prospects respond to what you say to them. And so the messaging, that elevator speech in our 3X appointments program, we work with each person on the program on a very granular level on what they're saying, because most people don't realize this, but they're creating the problems they're encountering by what they are saying. So here's my example. There's a very, very smart young man he just finished up the program. He's in insurance, and his manager enrolled him in the program. And early on, he said to me, I don't have a problem setting appointments. I don't know why I'm here. My problem is not setting appointments. My problem is closing, because every time I get an opportunity and I go to the underwriters give me pricing that is too high. So we're not competitive. I can't save the money. I don't get the client. So I'm not closing. Not my fault. So I listened to him, and then I said, okay, tell me what you're saying. And his elevator speech was, I'd like to see if I could save you some money on your insurance. So he already knew he couldn't do this. So he was setting himself up to fail by what he was saying. And not just that he wasn't going to get the appointment. He did get appointments, but he didn't get the client because he said, I want to see if I can save you money on your insurance. And then he'd go to the underwriters, and they would be higher than whatever the prospect was already paying. So we helped him create a new message. He was in commercial insurance. There's a lot of business problems that are solved by having the right insurance. We helped him create a new elevator speech that was not about saving money. So now he's not only making a lot of appointments, he is getting clients, because the way that prospecting message sets you up to close.
Right. That initial value proposition that you're pitching. So in that case, just kind of thinking off the top of my head, a different value proposition might be, let me show you how we can give you greater coverage and better benefits in a similar price range to what you might be paying today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Versus saving money, because businesses are certainly open to paying a same or similar amount. It might be even $100 more, but they're getting more for it. So they're getting more value. That's a much better pitch than I'm going to just save you money.
Right. And he's a very hard worker, and he was very frustrated. And he didn't even realize, most people don't, he didn't realize that what he was saying was just torpedoing the entire endeavor.
Well, I'm sure that he's benefited greatly from your training. And I have to commend his sales manager for seeing his work ethic and his work potential,
mm-hmm.
and then working through you to give him the mentoring that he needed to be successful, which will both benefit that company as well as going to benefit that young man in his career from now on.
Absolutely. He has learned a skill that he will take with him wherever he goes. And, it's funny because it's not just about prospecting. It is a way of communicating. So it doesn't matter, salespeople or marketing people like to talk about warm leads, cold leads, whoever it is you need to communicate with. The goal is to get their attention, gain their agreement to whatever your next step is. Usually that's the appointment. Prospect
Mm-hmm.
agrees to have an in-depth conversation with you. So I can't tell you how many clients we've worked with over the years that they're so frustrated because they say, Wendy, they're opening all my emails. And then I call them up and they don't know who I am or what I'm talking about. Or, Wendy, they filled out a contact me form on our website, and I called them up because they wanted to be contacted. And they said, oh, well, yeah, we're just looking, or we're not doing anything right now. We'll keep you in mind. So just because we as salespeople choose to label something as warm, that is not necessarily how your prospects view themselves. So it is better to go into the whole thing, whoever you're talking to. I don't care, cold lead, warm lead, social media lead, networking lead, referral, whatever the lead is, to go into it being sure what your message is. How are you going to quickly communicate the value that you offer to your clients or that you offer to your customers? And how are you going to get that prospect's attention and engagement and then their agreement to the next step? And once you have that skill, you can use it in any situation.
Well, absolutely. And one of the things that I like to, mention is you as a human being are always marketing. You're always selling. So these are skills that maybe you aren't even in a traditional B2B style business. Maybe you work for a nonprofit and you do fundraising. When you're reaching out to potential prospects to ask them for money, right, for that nonprofit because you're having, a push for, let's say, supporting LGBT youth, that is a sales call. And when you even think about what you're doing with possibly your significant other, and you're negotiating what you're going to be doing over the weekend, that's selling. That really is. You are putting forth your position, your interest, and in that case, your value proposition. Well, let's go to the beach this weekend because blah, 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 blah. And you're trying to convince that person of, your position and the value of what you're wanting to do, or the value of getting that person's interest to donate money to your nonprofit, and what's the value proposition there? What do they get out of it? Do they get recognition on your website, in your program, literature, etc.? So you're always, no matter what kind of organization you are, or even just going through life, you're always really in a sales position. Do you find that as well?
Oh, absolutely. We had somebody in our program about a year ago who, after the program ended, she shared with me that it helped her talk to her teenage son. It helped her communicate with her son.
That's awesome.
That was not the intent of the program, but that was just a nice extra benefit of the program.
Well, and I could see where that could happen, again, even in personal relationships, because you're learning how to really focus your communication on what you want and the benefit to the other person to buy into that. So
exactly.
Very cool. Very cool. So just out of curiosity, now, how long have you been doing your business now? And, how many clients, or, what's your ideal client?
Thank you for asking. My ideal client is a small to mid-size business owner. Most of the work we do is in the B2B space. And if you are a business owner and you do have a sales team, even if it's just one person, if you're sick of micromanaging them because they're not producing, and you have a meeting with them and they say, well, we need better leads and we need a better website and we need to do more social media and nobody's doing anything in COVID, and you kind of start to feel like you're losing your mind, we should talk, because that is the problem that I solve. If you are a business owner, you're starting out in your business, or you've been in business for a while, you have plans to grow, but right now you are the salesperson, then we should talk. Because what I do with to help solopreneurs and business owners that are starting out is set them on a path so that it's just very easy to bring in new business consistently, predictably over time. And you'd have a process in place that enables you, when you are ready, to go out and hire a salesperson, because you'd have a system to plug them into. They may still need some training and coaching, but you would have laid the foundation.
Awesome. I was just thinking to myself a little bit of an analogy here. And, so many people like to make excuses. I'm not creating the sales pipeline. I'm not closing because of XYZ, as you mentioned. We don't have an automated, email drip to system to nurture the customers. We don't have this. We don't. The website needs to be better. The marketing material needs to be better. There's always wanting to put the blame on something else, when in reality, what are you doing? What do you have control over? And how can you be the most optimum? And it's kind of like almost thinking about it, and I hope this analogy isn't completely off base, but to just spontaneously here, I was thinking that it's almost like, as a business, if you're not creating the sales, one, your business is sick, right? Your business has a potentially problem that could become chronic and could become fatal. But, if you had a chronic potential illness in your own body, and you don't know what that is, or you need help with it because it's major issue causing you problems or pain every day or something like that, you would go to the doctors, right?
Yes.
If you needed, you would get on, a regimen of either homeopathic or prescription medications and drugs. Maybe you might change your diet. You might need, continued care, depending on what that is. And a business is really no different. If you're not making the sales to have that flow of cash into your business, which is the lifeblood of a business, then your business is sick, and you need to figure it out. And just like there's great information on the web, and you can go to WebMD, gosh, if you start self-diagnosing yourself, sometimes you can get a little hysteria because you're like, oh, well, I have this symptom. And then you go and look on WebMD and there's all these potential illnesses, and it's like, right? When just go to the experts, right? That sales is like the blood in your veins. You have to have it. It's like drinking water. If you don't have water for 3 to 4 days, you're going to be sick. And so a business is very similar. And so, I'm kind of throwing the analogy out there. You're not only the queen of cold calling, you're the doctor of sales. How about that?
I couldn't agree more. And, one thing that I want to address that we haven't really talked about yet is, and I said it earlier, but people say a lot of really dumb things about this topic. And a lot of people, because of the dumb things, one of the dumb things is cold calling is about going through the no's and the hangups until somebody says yes to you. I mean, who in their right mind wants to do that? And so a lot of people think, oh, cold calling, it's scary, it's rejection. And first of all, I've been doing this a long time. I've been doing this about 25 years. And the number of times people have hung up on me in 25 years, I could probably count on one hand, because it is a skill. And I was lucky and I learned this skill. And a lot of people say a lot of dumb things about this topic. I have a colleague that teaches about this topic, and he says, prospecting sucks, get over it. Which is a very macho stance, but I'm not sure it's really helpful. And
No, it's coming from a place of negativity.
Yeah.
And it's already setting that negativity as a foundation. And I don't like that.
Yeah.
That sucks. How about that?
And, so the conversation about this idea of picking up the phone and talking to people that you don't know, it's usually discussed in terms of love it or hate it. and that supposedly 99.9% of everybody hates it, and then there's like a tiny handful of people that love it. But that's a silly conversation. The idea is not that you're going to suddenly love to do this. The idea is we want to take the emotion out of it. This is not an emotional experience. It's a business process by which you get new clients. And so that client that was in the program a year or so ago that was able to start talking to her teenage son, that was a combination of she learned the skills, the communication skill, but also we helped her take the emotion out of it. Because there are the facts, and then there are the stories you tell yourself about the facts. And the facts are, you're going to call somebody, they're either going to answer the phone or they're not going to answer the phone. If you get them on the phone, you're going to say something, that they're going to say something. And those are kind of those facts. The story is, oh, they're going to yell at me, they're going to hang up on me, they're going to scream at me, they're not going to be interested. I mean, that's a story. If that's the story you tell yourself, you actually need a new story. And
if that truly does happen, maybe you actually need to work for a different company. Maybe the company you work for doesn't have the products and services that resonate with the customers. I mean, if you're, I don't know, trying to sell something that's really cheesy and people get inundated with and so forth. It's like OMG, if I get another email on LinkedIn about, web development, I mean, it's like, there's a dime a dozen, and I don't have time to take all of them seriously. You know what I mean? So, I mean, if it is that, yes, those are valid businesses. I don't mean anyone offense who happens to be in that business. But if you do happen to be in that kind of a business that is a true commodity, and you're getting, and your prospects are getting those kind of messages, which become annoying. For example, I have to turn off everyone who has Bitcoin or something in their profile, because they just they fake this, hi, how are you doing today? And this fake, connection. And then all of a sudden, within 3 messages, and I try to be nice and engaging and so forth, especially if the person happens to be super cute. But within 3 or 4 messages, it's all of a sudden all about Bitcoin and how you should be investing here and sign up under me because XYZ. And it's like, click.
And that goes back to what we were saying earlier about you need to have something compelling to say because people react to what you say to them. And so we circled back around to it's a skill. We have someone that's in the program right now, and he called me up a few weeks into the program, and he was kind of in a panic. And because he had all these stories in his head, he hadn't actually started making calls yet. Because he was still learning the system, but he had all these stories in his head about how bad it was going to be. And he called me up in a panic and he said, oh, I can't do this. I'm going to drop out of the program. And so I said to him, we talked a bit, and then I said to him, do you think you'd be able to dial the phone 5 times a day? Just 5. It's like the cliche is hundreds and hundreds of calls. No, I said to him, can you just dial the phone 5 times every day? And he said, yeah, I think I can do that. So he's now dialing the phone 5 times a day. That's 25 times a week. He sets up 2 or 3 appointments every single week. And that is actually all he needs because he has a very high ticket offer. And so, one of this dumb things people say is you have to dial the phone hundreds of times, 100 dials a day. And if that doesn't work, 200 dials a day. And if that doesn't work, 300 dials a day. What you have to do is be strategic. You have to be skilled. You have to be strategic. And then, you have to dial the phone. But, this particular client, five dials. That's all he's doing every single day.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. And boy, I would not want to work somewhere where I had to dial the phone 200 times a day. That would drive me a little insane because that also just, says, something about the value proposition of the product. But, sometimes we have to work wherever we can get a job, especially in today's, time of COVID, maybe that's the case. But still, folks out there, even if you're in that kind of a job right now, getting her books, going through her books, you might be able to improve the quality of those calls and maybe get it down to where you only need to do 50 dials a day. Wouldn't that be amazing to be able to set as many of appointments as your peers, but dial less and have a higher conversion rate? Awesome sauce, right?
Absolutely. The real numbers game is about conversion. It's the conversion of your dials into conversations with the person you want to talk to, and then conversion of those conversations into appointments. So that's a combination of effectiveness, how you're handling gatekeepers, voicemail, emails, voicemail messages you leave, emails that you send, and how you handle the conversation when you actually get a prospect on the phone. That's the effectiveness piece. And then there's the efficiency piece. And we talked about some of that earlier with the micro targeting. And then also there are tools that you can use today that we didn't have 20, 25 years ago that can make you even more efficient.
Awesome. Well, this has been very insightful. And again, we're going to have links to your books down below. So that would be possibly a first intro into the quality of prospects for you. And so if you're out there listening and you would like to up your game when it comes to cold calling, appointment setting, and closing those deals to grow your business, or to improve your stats, maybe you're working in a call center, maybe you're a salesperson in an agency, take the time to invest in yourself and bring this knowledge to the table so that even if you are an employee as a salesperson, telemarketer, or something working for another company, you can improve your conversions and increase your sales to improve your own bottom line while helping the company along the way. Is there any last closings? I know we're getting here close to the end of our scheduled time.
Absolutely. Two things that I want to mention. If anyone who would like to talk, you can reach me at coldcallingresults.com. You can also call me because I am a phone person. So you could actually call me at 866-220-4242.
Awesome.
And if you get voicemail, I'll call you back. The last thing that I want to say, Henry Ford said this. Henry Ford said, either you think you can or you think you can't. And either way, you're right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. I've really enjoyed this conversation and learning more about you and about your business and coaching others to succeed. How gratifying. I'm so glad we had this conversation.
Ditto back at you, Dennis. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Well, absolutely. At any time, please feel free to reach back out and we can do an update, perhaps. Maybe if a new book comes out or new things happen within your business, would love to have you back. Well, thank you, everyone, for staying tuned to this end of this episode. If you are watching this on YouTube, please go ahead right below and hit that subscribe button, as well as click the bell. What that bell does is when you go into YouTube, it makes sure that you are notified of new episodes as they become available. Maybe you would like to listen to this on the go, on your drive to work, maybe on your nice relaxing walks, or even while you're wearing your red 3-inch pump heels vacuuming your house. So you can find us on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google, Apple, and about 10 others. Thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate you as always. Hoping you're getting value. And if you are, make comments below on whatever application you're viewing or listening this to. We'd much appreciate hearing feedback from you. This is Dennis Velco with OutBüro.com, your LGBTQ professional and entrepreneurial community. Join us today. Bye-bye.